Trying something new today. Just picked up the wireless Go. We'll see how it works. See if I'm trying to hide it. Hopefully it doesn't look like I'm wearing a V-neck. Anyways, hook. Supposedly that's the thing. Today's video. It's been a minute. I've tried to do the best I can, but it has definitely been a minute since I've recorded a video. So bear with me. Today, let's talk film photography. You know, I wanted to talk film photography mainly because I have been doing it for about a year and I really enjoyed what I've been able to do with film photography. It's been trendy. If you watch some of the more popular YouTubers, you can see that lots of people are getting back into that trend. And I started about a year ago. So let's get to it. Today I wanted to talk about the art of film photography, how it's different from digital, and how doing film photography has kind of reignited my love for photography. Now, does that mean I'm going to give up digital? Obviously not. I just did a video that was about the Fujifilm GFX 50, and I love that camera. So what I learned is that I can combine my medium format photography with my film photography. I started out on a Canon AE1 35mm about a year ago. I found it locally. I'll get more into that. And then actually I had a friend of mine decide to let me use their Bronica GS1, and I've done some medium film format photography as well. So I wanted to spend this video talking about the art of film photography, how it's different from digital, and how it's kind of reignited my love for photography. It has been a challenge because, let's be honest, even though I have shot digital, and you think that because you know one medium you know the other, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I have spent the last year taking photos on film and having them developed with a company called The Dark Room down in California. And though not a lot of my shots are the greatest, I have felt like it has kind of taught me how to see things differently. If you're used to digital, you're used to kind of a run and gun style, like just take the photos, you can go through them later, decide which ones you like. With film, you have, you can reload rolls, but you have 36 shots, and there's other things you have to take into account. Most of the cameras don't have the greatest focus. Like the Canon AE1 actually is pretty good, but I've noticed with the Pentax K1, even though I like the photos out of it better, I feel like I have a hard time seeing if it's actually sharp or not. And so for me, I feel like you're just kind of like guessing sometimes. I don't want to say guessing because you can meter stuff, you can do things. I mean, there's obviously an art to film photography, but sometimes I feel like, especially with these cameras being older now, like you're wondering, is it really, am I hitting that in focus? Am I getting my exposure right? Am I doing all these things that need to be done to get a good film photograph? A lot of the times my answer has been no. Like I feel like, yeah, the photos are okay. Like I'm just taking photos, but I'll get some ones that I really like. Learning, like I think I've shot rolls at ISO 100. That's for Portrait 400. Like I'm still learning stuff like that. I think technically they call it pulling stops. And when you send those into the lab, you're actually supposed to tell them, and they can underdevelop those shots. And so I've always just left it as is and did the ISO and didn't know much better. And so there's a lot of nuances in film photography that I think as you dive into it, you kind of just realize like this is what people who you've probably studied, I know I've studied, have learned in the past. Let's be honest, technology has advanced so much in the last 100 years to where you can take photos, record YouTube videos, and pretty much do everything you need to do on your phone. I think people get caught up in having to be indulged in the latest and greatest gears. I know I do all the time. I mean, I still do. But I think over the past few years, and especially with TikTok and more of the younger generation starting to get more into a sort of sense of nostalgia, I think that there has been a major resurgence in film photography. I think a lot of it is because people just kind of want to be different. They want to set themselves apart. And I think I know for me, when I first started landscape photography, and even though I was doing it digitally, I was always like, what sets me apart? Like, anybody can take and edit great photos, and if you go on Instagram at all and spend any time on Instagram nowadays, you will find amazing photos all the time. And so does that make you a good photographer or a good editor? And I think those things kind of, make people wonder, like, why would somebody buy this? A lot of people get this digital kind of mentality as well as like a consumer, and they think, oh, I could go recreate that, or oh, I could go do this. I think sometimes digital loses its sparkle because of that. And I think when, people, when you're content creating and you're trying to do all these things, people are always looking to be a little bit different. There has been so much of a resurgence of film photography that companies are coming out and, bringing film back. Back in like 2013, 2014, companies had just stopped doing film. They said that it wasn't worth it. It just wasn't profitable. And then as time kind of went on, they started seeing that it was coming back, and they started seeing the demand for it, and they started getting back into it. Similar to like vinyl. Vinyl was pretty much dead. As somebody who's done photography and DJ for many years, I always DJ'd on records. And when digital first came out, the allure of being able to have all your music collection just on your laptop and download whatever you want and get stuff for a lot cheaper than what records cost, it was great. But it wasn't really setting people apart. Like, people started realizing that their sound was almost the same as everyone else's sound, because you could go on Beatport and download anything from the top 100. I know as a DJ, I would just spend hours and hours in Seattle, where I lived at the time, up on Platinum Records, just digging through crates and crates of music just to find those songs that spoke out to me. Now, is no one else going to find those songs? No, people will find them, but you actually had to search for those gems. And I think that's part of what it feels like with film photography at times too, is that I feel like I have to search through those 36 photos to find my gems. It may only be 2, it may only be 5, it may be none. I may send in a roll and it may be ruined. I sent in a roll of medium format just this last round, and none of them came out. Like 3 of them, I don't know what happened. I have learned that medium format loading was just a little bit different. I also don't know if maybe I put in the slide and I took photos and I didn't realize that. But basically, all the photos were ruined. And so I think, when you look at going backwards in things, like, nostalgic sometimes isn't a bad thing. Like, it's learning, to me, especially with film, what I learned over the last years, it's learning what the people before you have learned, and taking those and add them to your skill set. It's almost like kind of sucking again to be good at something, or to do something new that you suck at, to be able to appreciate what you have. Uh, um, I think one of the things that we forget sometimes is that as you grow as a photographer, I mean, some people always change styles, but I think this is another kind of, I don't want to say hindrance, but this is also another thing that's like an Instagram culture or TikTok culture and stuff, is once you've built a following, those people expect that same look, that same brand, that same style from you. And if you don't, then you're not getting the engagement and stuff. So I think people get so caught up in just, once they found their style, then they're editing it. And it's so easy to edit those things. Most people have presets and it doesn't take time. And it's like, where's really the art? Where is the storytelling? And I'm not saying that it's all always gone, but I feel like you get kind of put in this box and then it's really hard to get out of. And so for me, I've always changed my style. I've always tried new things. It may not work for building Instagram followers. It may not work for building TikTok followers. I'm an older generation. I didn't jump on a lot of those wagons. Like, I have those, but I don't have 10,000 viewers. I don't have 15,000 viewers. I have very little, and I've grinded to even get those. And so I think for me, as just a photographer who does it as real work and stuff, I'm just always trying to find ways to build just just get better at what I do. And so I think that allowing myself and getting into film photography and taking that leap just allowed me to kind of enjoy photography again, enjoy, you know, not taking the best photos, enjoy relearning a process, looking through those photos, what worked about it, what didn't work about it, you know, trying new things, going out. I've done some medium format film photos, going out and realizing I have 10 shots. What am I going to use those 10 shots for? If I'm going to go out and shoot in one day, what do I want to get? And I did a little short video that I put on my stories on Instagram a couple weeks ago. I actually went out. I wasn't going to go out and shoot sunset, and I bet if I was just shooting digital, I probably wouldn't have gone out and shot sunset. But I wanted to shoot. I picked up some Portra 160 for the medium format camera, and I got some Portra 400, which I hadn't shot much of on the medium format camera, and I wanted to go out and just see what the sunset was looking like. And lo and behold, when I got out there, there was just sun rays coming through the clouds onto the ocean. There was a small cruise ship just going through the Tongass Narrows. And to me, setting up the medium format camera and taking photos and enjoying that moment, I don't even know if they come out. I actually just sent them to get developed, and hopefully this next week I will see them. I don't even know if they came out. I don't, but just the excitement of taking photos on my medium format camera and seeing that scene, it was almost like I was re-seeing that scene the first time. I mean, I've seen sun rays so many times. I've taken them with my camera so many times, and it just felt like reliving it again. Like, even though I had never experienced that exact scene, I mean, it was amazing sunset regardless, but it felt more special because I was doing something new, and I was seeing if I can make good photos out of this amazing scene. And, you know, I'll find out soon enough if I got anything good. And so, you know, I think if you're someone who's an artist or someone who's thought about doing film photography, I would say give it a go. Now, let's be honest, it's not very cheap. I got my camera pretty cheap when I had first got into it. It was, you know, it was really just starting to kind of take back off again. Film was starting to be more mass produced, and I went to a friend who actually has a shop right next to our retail store, and I said, hey, I know you like to shoot film. Where are you getting it developed at? And also, where, you know, do you have any SLR cameras or any, you know, 35 millimeter cameras that I could use that's just not a point and shoot? And she says, yeah, I do. So she sold me her Canon AE1 for about 75 bucks, and I loved that thing. But I didn't have any lenses or anything. And so my dad actually came up and visited me last August, and I was talking with him, and I was telling him how I was shooting film. He's like, oh, I got an old film camera sitting there. Well, he doesn't give it to me, of course, because that's my dad. He gives it to my daughter, and, you know, it's another Canon AE1, but he does have lenses, so we started sharing lenses. But I wasn't for sure if the AE1 was for me, and I will still probably shoot it. I ended up giving mine to my wife, and when I was down in California, I ended up picking up a K1000. Well, this down in California was a lot more expensive than my AE1. I think I paid like 300 bucks for this, and, you know, I mean, I love it. It's got a great light meter. You know, I've really enjoyed Pentax. If I got a medium format camera myself, I'd probably get an RB67. That's a Mamiya, sorry. I've been looking at the Pentax 6.7, but I've also been looking at the RB 6.7. But the Pentax 6.7 is a lot of medium format photographers' go-to camera just because of how great the image looks. I have felt like the images in this thing have more contrast and a little bit more pop than the AE1. But I do really like, with the AE1, the way it focuses is if it's blurry and there's a line in the middle, once it's not blurry, the images match up. And it's a pretty cool focusing mechanism. On this Pentax, half the time I'm like, you know, it's not that I don't know in focus. More or less when I'm focusing at infinity, it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, is it in focus? I mean, it says it is, but it doesn't feel like it is. I don't want to go too much into specific cameras and all that stuff, but that's kind of how I got into it. And I would say that if you like trying new things and you feel like you're in a rut or any of that stuff, go ahead and give it a try. You know, it may not be cheap. Developing film is not cheap. You can develop stuff at home. I think that's kind of the next process for me is it's very dark down in my basement here. I'm probably going to Cine still has a developing kit. And I thought about learning how to do that because, ironically enough, my daughter went to a fine arts camp here in Southeast Alaska. And one of her classes this year was photography. And she loves photography, just like her dad. And I'm getting off track. What makes film special? Film is just different. You know, when you take a digital photo, it's just ones and zeros. I mean, that's it. It's not even really an image. It's just a sequence number of ones and zeros. Now, obviously, what that's a simplistic term because of camera has millions of pixels. It has, millions of colors on scale. So those ones and zeros are all over the place. But in lamest terms, it's ones and zeros. Film is silver and I don't know all the things that make it up, but you have to basically use like a chemical to wash away the image. Like when you take a photo, it's just an imprint of an image, and then you have to actually develop that image. And so each film is made a certain way, and they just have very specific characteristics. And we'll go through, I will show you some of these as we're talking through this, some of the different photos I've taken and what I've taken them on, and you could just kind of see the difference of it. Now, digital is also, like, especially Fujifilm has really been trying to make digital look like film. And I think they've done a really good job in some senses, but I think anybody who actually has shot film and knows film, I could be fooled. I'm not that great of an eye yet, but I've even tried with some friends and was like, oh, what one's this and that? And they're like, oh, well, that one's film, and they know right away. So I think once you know what a film looks like, you know if it's a film photo. It just hits different. It just feels different, looks different, just has different characteristics to it. Yes, now with most people scanning and stuff, you can edit your photos a little bit and make them different, but there's not as much range as there is when you're working with a raw file. And so, it's kind of one of those things where you have to pick the right film stock, you have to pick the right camera, you have to pick the right conditions and know your meterings and your settings and to get those shots. And I think that's just what makes it fun and challenging. I also think what makes film special is that if you are an appreciator of photography, even if you're someone like me who, even though I started 2008, my first camera was still a D90. It was still a digital camera. When I went to school for photography, they didn't have they had one class that you could take for film developing, and it was so popular even then, it was booked out. And even when things didn't seem like we were losing it, it still was a popular class, surprisingly enough. And so I think for me, as a lover of photography, like somebody who I always followed was someone like Ansel Adams. And I know even as when I was doing digital, I went to the Grand Tetons and stood at the same spot where Ansel Adams took his famous Snake River photo. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm in the same spot as Ansel Adams. I mean, you're talking about the guy who really first learned how to shape light and shadows, and basically he was the creator of dodge and burn. If know anything, I mean, he was one of the original people to actually learn how to manipulate his chemicals and his enlargements of his film to dodge and burn his black and white photos. I could only just imagine if I was standing there with my medium format film camera or my 35 millimeter film camera and enjoying that same thing. There's also a lot of other like large format photographers who've been around for a while, and the way they carry the stuff around with them, the way they hike, it's not very convenient. You just appreciate the art of it. And I think that's what makes film magical, because most of the people that you're going to follow, or like me, maybe yours, people you follow someone new, but for me, the people I followed, a lot of them had tended to be film photographers of the past. And so I just think that being able to learn their craft, because this was their craft, digital photography wasn't their craft, they were film photographers, and learning all I can about it, I think in the end makes me a better artist. It makes me more creative. It makes me try to problem solve other things better. It makes me go out when I do shoot with my digital cameras and just try to focus on that shot and not just a run and gun style. Now, obviously, this doesn't work for everyone. I mean, if you're shooting sports or you're shooting, certain things that require fast speeds, that you need lots of shots, and obviously digital is the way. But if you're someone who likes to experiment, shoots landscapes, wants new challenges, then I would say give film a try. If nothing else, just see if one of your parents have one laying around. I know things have gotten more popular now, but I'm sure if you're a thrifter, you could probably find something at a thrift store, at a pawn store or something. Just see if you can pick up something. If nothing else, it'll probably hold its value at this point because of the, how these things have gone in popularity. I would just say, if you come across something and you're experimenting, do it. Shoot a couple rolls. Get them exposed. Even if it's like not landscapes or just your family or whatever. Like, I've enjoyed just shooting the kids and photographing my wife and photographing daily life stuff, the kids playing baseball and getting those developed, and just having those photos as like a photo, as like a film photo that I took. It just as soon as I get it, it just feels nostalgic to me. It feels like in another 20 years when I look back at that, I'm going to remember like that time in my life. Even if I ditched film tomorrow, I would remember that time where I took film photos of my kids in a digital world where, I could be on my phone and doing it. But I have this memory that just feels like straight out of the 1970s or 1980s that brings me back to my childhood. I feel like shooting film has simplified my process. It has made me slow down and just appreciate nature, appreciate the things around me, appreciate the small things. And I think if you take anything out of this video, it's, even if it's not film related, try new things. Get out of your comfort zone. Try to experiment more, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. That's what being an artist is. That's what being a photographer is. It's expanding, getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things, failing. If you don't fail, how do you get better? And I think that's the other thing about film is I fail on a lot of these shots, but the ones I get, I've loved. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it not being perfect. And that's something I have to learn too, because I'm very much a perfectionist. And so I think if you take anything away from this video, just get out of your comfort zone and don't be afraid to try new things. Hopefully it's film photography. And if it is, let me know in the comments below. And, just before I sign off and end this video, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's followed. I think we're almost up to 200 subscribers. I think we're like 6 short, 4 short, something like that. I have not been able to do as many videos as I want, mainly because this is our busy season. Our retail store, if you've watched any of our vlogs, has really done well so far. We are a little bit over a month into the season, and it's now blowing us away what we were hoping to be doing 3 years ago. So I have been very busy doing that. I haven't even really shot any shop vlogs. It's just I've been focusing on getting my work done. But I do want to come on and do videos, even if it's a review, even if it's just talking about things that I enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy listening to me talk. I know I don't look very pretty. I know I don't sound very good, but hopefully it's it keeps you engaged, and hopefully it gets you out and it makes it so you want to go try new things and whatever that is. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't know much about who we are and just come across our site, our channel is North Creative. We are a husband and wife business that's in Southeast Alaska, and we like to bring you guys along with. So I try to make my videos somewhat about reviews or things I like, and also try to do vlogs about just work and working in Alaska. And I also want to start bringing you guys out along in the field. We can do I want to do a video about doing photos and kind of show you what I get and bring you guys along to see what Southeast Alaska is like. So if you haven't, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next video.